Ah, yes. The Dover Demon Affair. One of those cases where you start the day with tea and end it smuggling a small extraterrestrial, we think, through American airspace, disguised as your bloody nephew. It began with a telegram from Massachusetts, which is rarely good news, is it? It declared, and I quote, creature sighted, possibly extraterrestrial or demonic. Request immediate British consultation. Which is a bit like saying it's either a weather balloon or Beelzebub. I packed accordingly, umbrella, crucifix, and a packet of Cadbury's fruit and nut. American chocolate's not that nice. When I arrived, the Americans had cordoned off half the country, set up tanks beside a drainage ditch, and were pointing guns at something roughly the size of a corgi. And there it was, the Dover Demon, small, pale, damp, and visibly terrified, rather like myself at my first posting in Singapore. They tried everything, loudspeakers, tranquilizers, even a priest. Nothing worked. The poor thing was just cowering in a pipe while the world shouted at it in 3 different languages. So I improvised, as one does when surrounded by Americans and panic. I produced my emergency ration of chocolate, placed it carefully on the ground, and for good measure waved a napkin as a flag of truce. It sniffed, took a bite, and sighed, which I took to mean peace achieved. Though the colonel behind me muttered, "You're bribing the monster with candy." Am I? Yes, I am, successfully. Then, naturally, someone shouted, "Bag it!" and 6 men leapt in with nets. Not good. The creature screamed, the lights exploded, and my moustache briefly rearranged itself from the static. I told them they'd frightened it. They told me I was interfering with a federal operation. And there we stood, 2 superpowers and 1 shivering goblin, all equally confused. Diplomacy as ever hung by a thread, and that thread was made of cocoa solids. The Americans decided they wanted to study it. The dissection was mentioned repeatedly. I explained that such an act would be, let's say, poor optics for the free world. They cited tanks. I cited the 1948 Paranormal Cooperation Accord, which, granted, is only legally binding if you can pronounce it after having 3 whiskies. In short, they had power, I had manners, and as usual, manners won by lunchtime. The next morning, the Dover Demon was scheduled for transfer to secure containment in Ohio. I had other plans. I forged a joint operation manifest declaring the creature an Anglo-American quarantine sample bound for London and stamped it with the DARS seal myself. Then I placed the little chap in a crate marked Fragile, the Queen's property, and escorted it to the plane myself. They waved, I waved, and we took off for London. We landed in Bermuda first. Apparently the Americans had realised I'd swapped their cargo with 3 tins of peaches and a thank you note. Damn them. They scrambled interceptors. I improvised again, introducing my travelling companion to the stewardess as my godson, Terence, who suffers from a bloody awful skin condition. To her credit, she didn't scream, which... When the US Air Force closed in, the creature grew nervous and emitted a hum that jammed every instrument within 50 miles. We dropped off the radar completely. I call that tactical chocolate diplomacy, phase 2. We landed in Sussex under the cover story of meteorological testing. That one. Professor Simon Montfort was waiting calm as ever, umbrella at the ready. "Good heavens, Monty, you've brought company," he said. "Yes," I said, "don't worry, he's house-trained, mostly." "Charming," he said. "Does it bite?" Only when cornered or deprived of cocoa," I reassured him. "Excellent. I could use a gardener," he told me. I think that was 40-odd years ago. The Americans still send requests to examine the missing Dover specimen. We still send polite denials that he exists. The creature now lives quite happily at De Montfort Hall, tends roses, hums to the professor's supernatural bees, and occasionally rearranges the furniture when it's bored. Apparently it's developed an awful fondness for Baroque music in Earl Grey. Good tea. I consider that a success of British cultural exchange. Once a monster, now a gardener. Frankly, that's better rehabilitation than most of the politicians I know. Responds well to chocolate and praise. Avoids sarcasm though during thunderstorms. So ends the Dover Demon affair. Proof, if anyone needed, that diplomacy is best served sweet, and that when confronted with the unknown, a little kindness and a good napkin, well, it can bloody save the world.